Armenian farmers take gunfire from Azerbaijani machine gun nest. The president of Azerbaijan shows off the plunder of his recent genocidal war. And the clock is ticking for the Biden administration to keep his campaign promise to Armenia. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sovereign Artsakh. I'm Michael Gablak, a Hollywood guy, and this channel is all things Armenia. I also have the rights to the Sogomon Tellerian story, and so in each episode at the end, I've been disclosing some details about Sogomon Tellerian that most people have never heard, and so if you're interested at all, stay tuned for that. Let's start at the beginning here. Artsakh to apply to Russian peacekeeping mission over Azeri machine gun fire at farmers. Oh, before we move on, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and to pass this video along or pass the channel link along to someone that you think might benefit or be interested in this content. And click the like button now also. That helps. Artsakh police say they will apply to the Russian peacekeeping command regarding the latest incident when Azerbaijani military servicemen opened cross-border automatic gunfire at farmers in Artsakh. The Interior Ministry spokesman Hanun Tadevosian told Armen Press that police have prepared materials and a protocol for submitting to the peacekeepers. Around 9:40 April 7th, Azerbaijani servicemen started shooting from the Azeri-occupied Sargsashan village at the direction of 65-year-old Shirin Sargsyan and 36-year-old Vitaly Harutyunyan, residents of the Sharshunan village who were farming in the fields of Sharshunan. The Azerbaijani side used a machine gun, and the left side windshield of a Harutyunyan's tractor was broken. Detectives of Askaran Regional Police have questioned the farmers, photographed the scene, and the tractor. Relevant materials are prepared and will be presented to the command of the Russian peacekeeping contingent. In addition, at the order of the Interior Minister Karen Sargsyan, police patrol is on a heightened regime at the Sarushan Karmir Shuka Highway. More police checkpoints will be added for 24/7 monitoring if needed. Despite the incident, the farmers continued working in the fields. Oof. Can you imagine? A couple bullets come whizzing by and break the glass. There's not actually a good picture of the broken windshield. Here's the glass. All right. That's just the state of affairs between Armenia and Azerbaijan right now. Now, I saw this picture of Aliev. He's opened a new garden in Baku. I'm not going to read this article, but this other article. Azerbaijan. Aliev is photographed against backdrop of own apotheosis of war. All right, I actually had to look up apotheosis. Apotheosis. The elevation or exaltation of a person to the rank of a god. The ideal example at epitome or quintessence. So the this Armenian perspective news source, Azerbaijan's Aliev is photographed against backdrop of own apotheosis of war, a quote-unquote park of Armenian armored equipment taken as loot has emerged in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. It is located on an area of 5 hectares. I guess that's acres in English. In American English. According to Azerbaijani media, more than 2,000 license plates taken by the Azerbaijani army can be seen at the entrance to this park. The series ends with the inscription, Karabakh is Azerbaijan. So here are helmets. I'm actually assuming most of these are from dead Armenians. And then there's more pictures. Oof. So these are Armenian, like some of them totally destroyed, some still operational, I'm sure. Armenian military equipment taken. Trucks, cannons. I don't know if this is just a replica of some of the trenches. I don't know. I wonder if this is burning continually so that museum goers can go and pretend they're on the battlefront. So Azerbaijan is gloating in their victory. It doesn't sound like they're... I don't know. This does not bode well. All right. I'm going to move on real quickly. So I'm not going to read this whole article. National interest. All indications are that the Biden administration will recognize the Armenian genocide. Okay, so here we are. What's the date today? The 12th of April. So there's 12 days till April 24th, which is the annual commemoration of the beginning of the Armenian genocide. And so this month of April and that day in particular are, well, around the world and in America, or if we're going to recognize the Armenian genocide officially, that would be the logical day it's going to happen. So let me just read. Michael Rubin writes the following in his article for National Interest. All indications are that the Biden administration will recognize the Armenian genocide more than a century after it occurred on April 24th, 2020. That's about a year ago. Then presidential candidate Joe Biden tweeted, "If elected, I pledge to support a resolution recognizing the Armenian genocide and will make universal human rights a top priority." It appears his staff remains on board with that commitment. On March 22nd, 2021, the Eurasia Group's Ian Bremmer, which I reported on this earlier on this channel as well, reported that White House sources had told him genocide recognition would go forward, while Bremmer noted not only Biden's campaign promise, but also that Vice President Kamala Harris had co-sponsored the 2019 genocide resolution. He is also correct to note President Barack Obama made and reneged on a similar promise. I don't need to read all of this, but that, they're still reporting on it, and we're confident that it's going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, we won't be surprised. All right, I hate to sound negative there. All right, I'm going to move on to Sogomon Tellerian. Please subscribe to this channel, pass these videos along, and click the like button now. Okay, if you've been following along, I read the first page of Sogomon Tellerian's prison diary. In other words, the first words that this guy sitting here around this time, this picture was, the family says that it was taken in Berlin. It seems like may have been taken actually while he was in prison. And so it's this guy, look at those eyes. These words over here were written around the time this picture was taken, within months, I would say, if not within days, weeks or days. But it's interesting how legend arises from fact. And there's historical fact, and then there's legend that arises. And one of the things, and my job as a Hollywood producer and writer developing the story, is I want to be as accurate to the details, the facts, as possible. And Hollywood doesn't tend to do that. Hollywood will find a couple interesting nuggets and then they'll fill in all the gaps or make up their own stuff. And that's, drives me nuts. How do you go to a movie that's inspired by actual events when, people don't understand what that means? Inspired by actual events and based on a true story. There's different category or different criterion to fit those categories. And this story, the Sogomon Tellerian story, is the most compelling story on its own, without embellishment, without filling in any gaps. And so as a result, getting closer to the details of the story fills in those gaps itself. And one of the things that surprised me initially when I was reading certain accounts, there was the notion or the detail that Sogomon dragged his foot through the blood. He shot Talat in the head. Talat dropped like a rock, cracked his skull on the sidewalk, and the blood began to ooze immediately. And from the account of the memoir, it's not there. But in other accounts, that Armenians have put on plays and written about it, and the lore that he dragged his foot through the blood. So I wrote that into the script in this scene. I wrote that he dragged his foot, like he shot Talat and froze for a moment. As Talat dropped, he froze, kind of taking in the moment. And that is in the memoir. He tosses his gun aside, and then the mob. This guy just shot a guy in cold blood in the middle of a busy Berlin street. And so that's going to get some attention. And so there's a woman screams down the street and people turning and start shouting at him, and it's all in German, and he doesn't speak German very well, but all eyes start turning toward him. He's standing over a corpse, a dead man, and he was instructed to do so because this wasn't just about killing Talat. This was about getting the truth out of why Talat had to die, and the only way to do that was to go on trial. And so he wasn't supposed to escape, and he certainly wasn't supposed to die on the spot. Or like Gavrilo Princip, the assassin of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, you could say this is a parallel event where a young student assassinated a world leader over, political assassination. Well, Gavrilo Princip, which that assassination began World War I, he turned the gun on himself, but was apprehended before he could pull the trigger. Like he was going to kill himself. That's a whole different mindset than this story. That's where these two similar stories depart significantly. And the whole point was to get the genocide on the front page of the news, to get it in a courtroom so that the world would know. So he was instructed to drop his gun and surrender, except what was not anticipated in those instructions was an angry mob. So they rush at him, the mob. If you know anything about Weimar Germany in the years following World War I, there was political upheaval, and there were assassinations happening all the time. And so people were like, what? This guy just killed they thought Talat was some war hero. And so they pummeled him, and they beat him brutally, and he was rescued by the police. So he actually started to run. He was supposed to stand there, but when the mob charged him, he's like, wait, I don't want to die. And then the police rescued him from the mob. And then, and I didn't realize this, that foot dragging through the blood, I wrote it into the script, and I have to modify the script now. I wrote it into the script as Sogomon just looking down at the blood in a kind of a trance and dragging his foot through as he was just meditating on what had just happened. That's not how it happened. It really happened, but in the memoir it doesn't mention it. But in the prison diary, right here, where is it? I want the police. I screamed in German. As we pass by, I peer at them, the people gathered at that spot. That's when I see a corpse lying on the ground amid the onlookers' feet, whose blood had painted the entire width of the sidewalk black. As I step across the pool of blood, my feet rub against the ground, seemingly of their own accord, in order to be painted with that appalling blood whose detestable stench I could very much smell at that moment. So this is different than I had envisioned it, in that it's actually portrayed in some of the portrayals of this event. It was when he was being... he had run from the spot, from the mob. The mob had surrounded him and were beating him, and then the police dragged him out and pulled him back to that location and literally dragged him right by the spot. And that's when his feet, as he was probably walking along with one arm, each arm in a policeman's grasp, and then when he went right past the body, he says, as I step across the pool of blood, my feet rub against the ground. So it's like he scuffs his feet. He's walking, but he scuffs his feet in the blood, seemingly of their own accord. My feet rub against the ground, seemingly of their own accord, in order to be painted with that appalling blood. It's this sign of, I guess, disrespect. It's the way it feels. But these are details that are important. You want to be accurate. And this was written 3 weeks after the event. So this is him remembering a detail that was not recounted in the memoir when he wrote the memoir a couple decades later. Anyway, just some observations about Sogomon Tellerian and this incredible story. Remember to subscribe, click the like button, and share these videos. Click like now.